Hi, and welcome back to Sounds Sketchy. I'm Jeffrey. Well, this is video number two, and boy, did I receive some great feedback. If you'd like to leave some feedback for me, please do so. Sound off in the comments. And if you like what you heard, then go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe for more videos, and I'm already breaking what I was setting out to do, which is to use less ums. That was definitely something that got noted for me. And another thing was to have some form of background music. So while I don't have that just yet, then that is something that is going to be coming down the pipeline. Also, have something going on at all times visually. So here we go, drawing a little warm up for myself. This will be a little rendering of how I look in this current moment. Looks a little Mario-esque to me, but just while I am speaking to you with my voice, I wanted to give everybody a little update and to encourage you to join in on the fun. If you like what you see here, to support it, and you have a chance to shape it for future episodes. So keep tuning in, and we are going to get started with today's prompt without any further ado. So, what will we be drawing today? We will, in fact, be drawing an extra small, airy carrot. Extra small, airy carrot. And in this case, airy, the definition would be, in a personified sense, having little care to, laissez-faire attitude, if you will. So, without any further ado, let's go ahead and I'm going to select... Oh no. That's not the tool I want. That's not the tool I want. Oh no. Oh no. Okay. Hold on. Wait a minute. Oh no. We're starting off real strong here. Control. No. Okay. I need a select tool. I need... Boom. Nope. I need... Boom. Oh gosh. Ah! Oh, I got it. Yay. Okay. Awesome. I was about to edit that out, but I don't think I will. So, extra small, airy carrot. In this case, I want to say it's a baby carrot. One of them baby carrots, which I guess technically isn't actually a baby carrot. It's really an adult carrot that's been pared down. So if anything, it's more of a very old carrot. But we are going to stay with the theme, and I think I would like to make this guy very chill, very relaxed. He doesn't have a care in the world, and he's got a cocky little grin. And yeah, I like that a lot. Okay, so here's we talked last time about character design, and we talked about different shapes. So circles means more friendly, triangles means faster, usually more clever, and squared means rounded or grounded. Rounded? No. Square means grounded, supportive, resilient, that sort of a thing. We psychologically we assign different properties to different shape types. So, for our carrot, extra small airy carrot, he doesn't have a very strong opinion about what anybody thinks of him. So we are going to lean into that. But I don't want him to be a jerk. I do want him to be likable. At least he might be. Other people might not like him, but in universe, people might not like him, but we'll like him. So here's a thing about drawing, a little tidbit. As a reminder, golly, the whole format for this show is I have a random generated prompt that gives me gives me two verbs and a noun, and what I do is I first create a character, I draw that character, and then I come up with a voice for it. I'm a voice actor and an illustrator and artist, visual artist. This is a great start. However, there's a couple of things. First, the arms and the legs should be different. When you're walking, it's opposites. So when this arm here is moving forward, that means this leg is moving backward, the opposite way. It's a counterbalance. So in that case, we're going to have this leg go back. And I like giving him some longer limbs to work with. So let's do this. And then we'll have his second leg. So I mentioned something about character design. First things first, if you find you are having trouble hitting your lines like I was just there, slow down your drawing speed. Sometimes that can really help if you visualize the line. If you're trying to go really fast, you might try to repeat the movement multiple times, when instead you could just slow down and do one strong, confident line movement. So when designing your characters, and having to do with physics, sometimes it helps to actually draw the flat surface that they're going to be walking on, especially if a character is sitting. Something that I learned very early on, maybe when I was in middle school or high school, was that often when you draw a character that's sitting, what beginners tend to do is to keep the buttocks area or wherever there's a contact with the floor rounded. And that's incorrect. What should happen is that should flatten out. So there might be a little bit of a hint of curvature or a little extra cushion because the flesh is getting pushed. But that should be a flat surface. Otherwise, what it looks like is they're just floating in midair. Now, conversely, if they are a character that would float in midair, then by all means do that. So, with this character, in addition to this, keeping this in mind, I want to make sure that his foot on the ground is flat. And I'm going to slow down again because you could see I was starting to get speedy and I was getting ahead of myself a little bit. Now, I have been hearing recently, and it's something I've been trying to incorporate into my drawings, and that's the idea of more dynamic poses, please. So essentially, it's one thing if you want to draw your character in a standing neutral pose. That's all fine and dandy. When you're doing character design, now think you're trying to convey an entire character with no words. Sometimes you can use words, and often for a voice actor you will get some prompting, but there is so much that gets conveyed via imagery, so you have to take things into account when you're drawing your character. And the more bold and dynamic a pose you can draw your character in, the more that's going to, the more information that is going to share with any voice actor that is going to pick up your work, or any collaborator who is going to be relying on your image is going to benefit from a more dynamic pose, especially because this is such a small character. We think extra small, airy carrot. How much personality can you convey with such a small character? There's a few other choices we could make here. We could either add clothing that can share a lot about personality. So let's think about the personality of this character first, because that often is going to tell us more about the character themselves. And when you have a fully fleshed personality, that is going to inform your choices. So, as of right now, our only verb that we have that gives this carrot any real personality without having to take a leap of creative faith is airy. So if this is an airy character, it doesn't care about what others think. So we already have that going with his really cocky expression. I think actually we might be able to push that up a little bit more. And I kind of want to differentiate the shapes of his eyes versus his eyebrows. I know this is a simple cartoon character, but I think there's more to be said by giving him some eyelids and fully drawing those out, and then giving him maybe these little I think I want to play with his eyebrows a little bit. Maybe I need to push the top of his head just a little higher in order to give him enough room for that. And maybe what we'll do is we'll give him a little bit of a distinctive curve at the top of his skull. So that would give him a little bit more of a distinctive look and a silhouette. You will often hear artists recommend to have your silhouette, have your character be drawn in a silhouette or to create a silhouette. And the reason why that is, if you've ever watched Pokemon and seen Who's That Pokemon, that silhouette will tell you so much about that character's readability. And the idea being, if you took these iconic characters and you could only see a silhouette, they're completely in shadow, and all you see is their outline over a black figure, you could immediately recognize who that character is. If Pikachu was standing in the dark and you can only see Pikachu's outline, you would know that that's Pikachu. So it helps to draw your characters with that silhouette. And I'm getting a little preoccupied on these eyebrows here. I don't know if I want to make them anatomically part of the carrot itself, like it's a little carrot ridge. And I think I'm settling on something here. I think instead of just having lines for eyebrows, I might instead do something that gives him a bushier eyebrow look. I think that would give him a bit more of a tough exterior and maybe a little bit less of a naive look. So, for example, if I have just your typical eyebrows, they kind of get lost because he's such a small... He's such a diminutive character. So what I might do instead is I might give him some patchy green eyebrows as if they're part of the carrot greens. And for that, let's stay with the triangular shape, because I do picture that this is a clever individual. And if he's airy, he also could be potentially cocky. So, or at least self-assured. So I think having a couple of triangles in his design would go a long way. And what's really fun about characters in cartoons is that you can push the boundaries just a little bit. So if these eyebrows just really aren't doing it for me, then what I could do is have them come off the character just a little bit. So here's the simplest form of triangle. And instead of trying to do 2 dashes, I may just stick to doing 1. And that doesn't quite translate. So let me see if I did something more like this. Does that give... Yeah, we're headed in the right direction here. So maybe I need to exaggerate this one even more, and I think it would be good to pull this eyebrow in just a tad more. There we go. So now we've kind of adapted this triangle shape to better suit our needs. And we're going to have this one play right off of here. Now they're kind of facing the same direction again. So I do want to change that. And the fact that this character is walking around with their eyes closed conveys a lot. I personally like to draw characters with their eyes intact if I can help it, but in this case it might make more sense to keep them closed. Now, I'm really having trouble because this is such a small frame and these are such thick eyebrows, keeping them consistent. I don't like the look, so what I might do is draw a artificial bridge of the nose. Basically, I'm taking my eraser tool and I'm drawing a line down the center of his face. And in doing so, I am creating a space for the bridge of the nose and a separation in between the two. I could draw a monobrow, but in doing so, I would lose that distinctive triangular shape, and I'd like to avoid that. So now we have our triangular eyebrows. They are shaped in a way that I think really conveys the airy nature of this character. And I think if I drew some eyelashes, that would really help and make this curve of the eyes very distinctive. I think that would help convey that the eyes are in fact closed, and these are eyelids that we're seeing. So now if he's airy, another pose, you can also use poses from well-known characters as shorthand. So I really like that smile, but what might it look like if this character was whistling a tune? Would that look even more confident? Would that be a good vibe? And there's a couple ways you can draw a whistling mouth. There is, of course, the 2 lines, a circle, and a smaller black circle within that circle, but that doesn't really work for this. So the other thing you can do is kind of like a little fish face, or like the end of a cartoon bone, and that can work perhaps a little bit better in this case. So I really liked that smile we had, but with the eyes closed, this makes me think of an older cartoon and somebody that is really could not care. And it's kind of fun because the last video I had worked with a sense of a character that also was making music. So maybe instead, and I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here, let me go back and look. There's this versus this. And I kind of like them both. I think whistling adds more of a personality. So let's take a pause here. I'll go back to the more complicated shape by hitting undo a couple times. Now let's think about this personality here. If airy, whistling a tune, or smiling with confidence. So this is a confident carrot. It's a long, thin shape, so why don't we go ahead and give this character some clothes to work with? Let's just because it's a carrot doesn't mean it doesn't have to be dressed. Now, if we were to look at a carrot's top or a hat, this is a baby carrot, so that wouldn't necessarily have a stalk like a true carrot out in the wild might have. But since it's already such a long shape and it's so distinctive, it might be fun to include a stalk of some kind, especially because that also works to give it a distinctive silhouette. We talked about that. So, to do that, I'm just going to draw this little maybe fluffy cloud shape. And I'm actually going to do a simpler version of that because I really want this to be distinctive. So now, when drawing these little puffy cloud shapes, there's a few ways you could approach this as well. I kind of freehanded at this point. I mentally visualize a circle and then draw cloud puffs around it until I'm satisfied. If you have done this for a while, I think that that can lead to a more organic looking series of shapes. If you would like to practice doing this on your own, or if you don't have a method or that method doesn't work for you, what you can do is draw vaguely the shape that you want. So that could be a circle, and then you would draw your lines where you want the exit point to be. Make sure that they're connected all the way through to the edge of the circle, either to the center, or even better, you could draw it straight on through to make sure it's really nice and straight and in alignment, so it looks more connected. It looks like it's part of it. If it comes off at an angle, it would look kind of weird. So don't do that. Draw your lines all the way to the center, because you can always erase, especially with digital paint, digital programs. And then what I would do is recommend doing small circles, then bigger circles, and maybe make a couple of irregular ones. So maybe two that are kind of conjoined. And then what I can do is, once I have shapes that I'm really happy with, is I can come back in and erase the extra lines that I don't need, and voila, you have essentially the same shape. Now, up to you however you'd like to pursue it. Let's give maybe one more puff in here. I don't think that that looks overly cloud-like, and for this kind of cartoon style, we would want to keep a simplified shape. Stalks for a carrot, of course, look very different. If I were to draw a more realistic carrot, which also would be kind of funny in its own right, a carrot would be shaped much more with that bulbous triangle, and the stalks would be more of a collection of leaves hanging off the top. And obviously that's not what we went with this time, although there is something really compelling about this shape in particular, and that would give a different quality of personality. So maybe this carrot is more, maybe these are more like dreadlocks, maybe they're more of a longer grunge rock and roll or a punk look. And also, when you do different variations, then you can change up the anatomy. You're not strictly married to the carrot as it appears. So what if I were to draw the eyes up here? And now we have a character that is very different from what we started off as. And the carrot is now part of this whole, these stalks are now part of the whole carrot. And we could play around what size we want the eyes to be, what shape we want the irises to be. And this, to me, conveys a more friendly character than maybe this is the neck here, and maybe this is a character that doesn't have a mouth. And let's make these eyebrows more distinctive. I think you're getting where I'm going with this, and I'm actually getting off track for my original character as I'm getting sucked into this new idea. But what I really want to impress is that there's no right or wrong way to design a character. Just because somebody does it one way doesn't mean that another way doesn't work just as well. For example, this version of a carrot might fit in a much more surreal setting. What if it's a carrot bodybuilder? If I'm keeping these more distinctive lines and this kind of more realistic style, what if I gave this carrot huge biceps and arms and doesn't care at all what you think? Here we go. This is an airy carrot because got these huge arms, so you don't care about these shrimpy tiny roots that hang off of the bottom of this character. So maybe that could be a way that you would convey airiness, is that this character just has these tiny little legs, skipped leg day, and has wound up with this physique, but doesn't care because, again, an airy personality. So let's cover his shame, and let's give this guy some booty shorts, and we'll make them super loose down here, so that it further adds to the ridiculousness and the stick legs. And great, I'm liking that. And then we'll give a muscle tank up top, and we'll do like so. Yep, just one of those tank tops that absolutely serve. They cover very little. They use very little fabric, leave very little to the imagination. And let's make this a different color so that it separates out. And what we can do is this. And look at that. I actually stopped midway through and I created a whole different character. Just like that. And we'll put a stripe here to help complement that bulbous shape of the carrot, and also to show a little variety and a little extra unique design. And there we go. This is a very buff weightlifting carrot, and let's go the whole 9 yards. Let's make this bulbous center the pecs. The pecs. And now we've almost gone away from a carrot entirely. So here's our guy, and we are going to leave him just like this. And how does he look with a little bit more of a determined look? Yeah, bruh. You can't mess with this, bruh. You can't deal, bruh. Do you even lift, bruh? What'd you talk about, bruh? Square up. So here's that guy. Special mention. Let's now give him a little place that he can live off to the side here. And I'm about to cut off this area a little bit. I'm so sorry. Let's let this guy do his thing over here. And let's go back to our friend out here who has been sitting patiently. So let's do a little tune, and we'll also keep these on the smaller side, and we'll keep them tilted at crazy angles so that it's a little bit more evident that this is a carefree, chaotic song. And we'll kind of rotate them a little bit, and I cut off part of the hand. That's okay. I'll go back and add that back in. And here we go. So let's add some additional details. For this guy, if he doesn't care about anything, let's then put him in an attire that complements that. So extra small, airy carrot. I like the idea that we already have some shoes going here, so maybe I'll just give him some basic shoes. This will also help inform the direction that the feet are facing. So I'll draw the soles of the feet here, maybe a couple of lines to show this is the bottom of the instep. And you're going to draw a little bit of a peanut shape in order to make the heel and the sole of the foot distinctive. And you know what? Let's make it a little bigger, a little more noticeable. Let's give him some larger feet, and we'll kind of tilt that back a little bit and kind of match that personality and that vibe. And we'll make the rest of his shoes dark. And let's give him some high tops. Why not? And we'll finish off that look with a little dot here. That's pretty distinctive. And then we're going to do the same down here. We're going to give him some distinctive feet. And now, when you're coloring something that has overlapping darkness, it's up to you. If you feel like you need something gets lost, in this case I feel like the shape of the foot gets a little lost, what you can do is draw a negative line, and I would recommend you keep that connected to negative space and thin and as suggestive as possible so that you're helping your viewers to fill in the blanks themselves. And then we'll do a little dot here to show that these are some kind of cleats or whatever. Why am I not thinking of the name of the shoes right now? Whatever the ones that have those little... Sound off in the comments if you can tell me what the name of these are. I'll probably think of them. Not Vans? No, not Vans. Anyway, so now he's got these cool shoes, and maybe that's why he feels so on top of the world. He's got these cool shoes, and he's got some headphones. Maybe that's what's going on. He's got some headphones, and he's listening to them, and he's just enjoying the day. Now, here's a challenge. How do we approach these headphones? He's got such a tall head, and he's got this fun little stalk on top. So how do we approach these? Well, you can play with proportions yet again. He's got these larger feet. I wouldn't say that they're obscenely huge, but they're cartoonishly big. They're a little disproportionately large, right? So what we can do is we can do the same thing with these headphones. So especially because with smaller characters, sometimes you'll need to draw items that are their accessories a little larger so that they translate better. I could try to do headphones or these little buds, but it might not translate so well. Like if I just put little things here, are they Frankenstein bolts? Are they earrings? Are they studs? What are these? So what I could do is do these big old cans on the side of his head and make sure that I really make these more detailed. Now, I don't want to pull focus from this character himself. I don't want the headphones to be the primary focus. So what you can do if you don't want something to be the main focus is play with boldness in your lines. So for example, this is a really thick black line, and I don't necessarily want that since the rest of his line work is pretty consistent. So what I might do is I'll erase the black. And again, these are all decisions, and if you're drawing this character over and over and over and over and over again, then you have to make sure that you're okay with doing that, and you want to set them up in a way that makes it easier for you to do so. So let's make sure that these look like they're on his head and that they're not just hanging off. And I'm going to clean this up and change the shape just a little bit. What we can do is make kind of a two-tiered sort of system here. So this will be the cushion against his head, and this will be the outer edge. So that's one way we can cut down, is actually make the shape a little bit more detailed so that one, it translates a little bit better, and two, um, reads a little more consistently, and also in providing more information, it actually cuts down on the amount of detail we'd have to add, because for the inside part here, I keep erasing it, I mean to draw. What I would like to do is, yes, do some lines in here. Nope, I actually don't like that. So we've tried, and instead what I'll do is keep this thick black here. And I think that that's still enough to offset our character. We're going to do a little line, a little suggestive line here, or maybe a little circle, just so, yeah, okay. I'm really liking that. That looks very headphone-esque. And then we're going to repeat that shape on the other side. Pay attention to the shapes, because headphones aren't just circles. They're donut shaped. They have almost a flat edge, and then there are two discs on either side, the cushion and then the outer part. And those two parts combined make a sort of sandwich. There we go. And kind of unintentionally, keeping this cushion black has now created a little bit of shading for us. Now, here's another problem that we've kind of run into with this decision, is that the eyebrows no longer work. So we're going to have to thicken up the eyebrows to make sure that they don't get lost. They're a little thin right now. So by thickening them up now, we've brought them back. And they also compete more for focus and real estate. So we'll be able to see the eyebrows a little bit more. I'm going to fix up this mouth just a little bit. I like the fish mouth shape, so I'm going to stick with that. But we're going to just connect the lines and make it a little clearer. And let's see, let's thin this out just a little bit. I'm just going to clean this up. And there we go. So we've got, now the last thing is I just need to connect these headphone cans. Uh-oh. And there's a truck backing up outside. Here we go. And now this is starting to look pretty busy with the head piece. So because we opted to go with headphones, and we did say this was a baby carrot, I'm actually going to scrap this idea here and make him have just headphones. And maybe, so here is the dilemma and the story for this character. So this is a baby carrot and doesn't care what others think, because though he doesn't have the same stalks on his head that the other carrots have. I was about to make him so confident that he's about to walk off a cliff without noticing, but I'm going to change that up. So now, because he's so confident and so self-assured, he's actually going to be cool and very comfortable with himself, because he doesn't need other people's approval. He's got his headphones and his cool tunes, so he doesn't need your approval, Jack. He's just going to tune out the world and do his thing. So, and here's the finishing touch. Here's what ties it all together. So visually, we have shading. We also can use color. And what I'd like to do is, okay, that doesn't read nearly as well, so we'll keep the line work distinct and we won't just use shadow. What I will do is I'm going to use this tool and let's shrink him down just a little bit more. Yes. Great. So we'll keep him as the focal point, but we're going to bring him down. And the reason why I want to do that is because I want to surround him with some other carrots. And these will not be baby carrots. Now, let's see. I'm going to draw these guys. And they will be visually distinct. So I'm just drawing my curve because I want them to have a line of action. When you're drawing characters, you want a line of action for them. It helps translate their body structure so you can build off of that line, and it's visually more interesting than just a straight up and down line. So carrots are triangular shaped, so this will be a curved triangle. And let's do a little nudge here, and we're going to separate this into 3 distinct sections. And this will also inform, when you're working with objects, you want to treat them like a 3D space. If you've ever done 3D modeling, you'll know what I'm talking about. But basically, if this is the front of the object, you have to know that the back object is in the same spot. That's something we can get into a little more deeply. But essentially, what I want is to have my eyes here. And to help keep the idea of carrots consistent, I'm going to draw the same shape eyes. And that should help convey. And of course, when I color them, they'll have the same colors. And that way, when you have this baby carrot character, you'll notice that he's a carrot. You'll know that he's a carrot because he'll have other characters that are definitely carrots standing around. So what is the dilemma, and how did this carrot's personality shape? Well, he's a baby carrot, and the other carrots used to make fun of him because he didn't have a fancy green stalk on top of his head. And because of that, he was very self-conscious. But then he found these headphones, and now he just dances to the beat of his own drum, and he doesn't care about what the other carrots think. He doesn't care about what the other characters think. So let's see. Let's do a little oh my, this is unorthodox. Like, whoa. And then we'll draw. Now you want to make sure that the eyes are focused in on the subject and that it's clear that they're looking at this guy. That's a fun expression. Sometimes if you're having trouble making sure that the eyes can follow, then draw a line from the center of the eyes to the object that they're looking at. That's fun. I like these guys. Assumedly they're kind of jerks, but maybe they're not. And they're just poking fun because it's something different and it's something other, and that's unusual. We'll also demonstrate the difference in their size by giving them a bit thicker outlines. Okay, and we're going to do some line work to make the carrot shape more consistent. Let's see. Let's keep this nice, consistent shape. And here we go. What we'll do is draw the same kind of legs. And I guess I didn't give our guy shorts. That's a choice. That is definitely a choice. So, hang on. Here we go. So in order to keep the consistency, let's do this. And I'll draw off the bottom so it doesn't look like a carrot dick. How about that? And let's see. We'll draw these characters. We'll just give them some simple feet, some simple shoes. We'll also do these little lines here. And maybe I'll do some tails, shoes, some Sonic the Hedgehog type stuff. Let's go ahead and color this part in so it's a little bit more clear. And these guys should also have their own eyebrows raised in surprise. Like, oh my gosh, what is this guy doing? Whoa. Oh, right. That's a great voice for them. What about a voice for our protagonist? Now, this is ending up being a lot of fun. And sometimes that's what drawing is. You start off with an idea, and it grows into something much more than you thought. Now, hands. I have a very distinct idea of how I want to draw this hand. Let's do this. I want kind of almost a rubber hose style. Yeah, like kind of a jazz hand sort of thing. That looks good. Okay, I'm happy with that. That's good enough. And then we'll draw just a little. No, don't need to. That reads well enough as is. Stop it. Stop it. Okay. Sometimes I don't quite get the hotkey for the eraser doesn't always work first try. So let's see how we can make the most out of this shape here. I kind of want him pointing at his mouth in surprise. So a hand is basically a triangle for the palm, and then these little sausage shapes for a hand, for the fingers, and a couple lines to convey that. And that looks good enough for our intents and purposes. Let's make this finger a little more distinctive. See, I'm going too fast, so let me try slowing down. Almost there. I like that. And maybe what we'll do is we'll actually... Yeah, that looks good. Okay. Then let's connect this to an arm, and we're good. So there's that carrot. And let's put this guy a little more center. And here we go. Let's start on the second carrot here. I feel like I was saying something a while back, but I forgot. See, I erased the curve and I got too confident. So now that I've drawn one character, I'm going to just use a visual guide. These are the secondary characters, so I'm not super concerned about them being super consistent. Now that I'm looking at them, they kind of look like, what's that? Mr. Towel? No. Who's the poop guy on South Park? Gee, now I kind of hate this. Let's see. Let's exaggerate the features on this guy. Yes. Okay. So now this guy's gonna be a little more actively repulsed. Like, oh my gosh. Oh, that's what I was talking about. Voices. So yeah, let's change up these characters' personalities a little bit. And again, we're gonna take this off of the head just a little bit because this is Cartoon World, and that we can do that. And we'll do something more panicked and distinctive with the hands. I'm not like that. So hands are interesting because they kind of curve. They can be concave. So if you need to pull up a reference, always pull up a reference. For hands especially, if you want to just look at your own hands, you can. But because this is so cartoony, I kind of need to exaggerate this out because I don't have that much space. So let's do... Here's a quick trick that I've learned. is you do two. So fingers are normally 3 joints. We're just going to do two. Um, Forward, forward for the top, and then back, back. I got that from Ethan Becker, who probably got that from somebody else. Um, got some really good tips, so look that up as well. Shout out, free plug for another channel. Here we go, and voila. Again, not an amazing hand, but for our purposes, this looks fine to me. I kind of want to change up this pinky a little bit. Yes. Okay. I like this. So, oh, the horror. Oh, oh no. Um, let's have him gritting his teeth. Yes. Yes. I like this a lot. Um, and let's do the other hand here. Again, I don't want to spend a ton of time on this. This is just ancillary characters, but they serve the story, and ultimately that's what all this is it's telling the story. I'm breaking my own rules. I said go this way with the hands, and then immediately I start breaking them. Jeff, you're breaking your rules. You're breaking the rules, Jeff. Oh my gosh, you're breaking the rules of art and creativity. And it's not working. So maybe work within the rules until you're good enough with them that you can break them. But give me some panicked hands. These look panicked enough for me. And we're going to give, yeah, little loop-de-loops for the arms. And we're going to add the carrot stalks so that they are looming over this smaller baby carrot. Yes, great. So this is a story about being nonconformist. It's okay to be outside of the norm. Embrace yourself. Find your own way. Find your own comfort. And I'm going to make these outlines in the back a little thicker because these are bigger characters, bigger objects. And then let's also give some twin stick legs, twig. That's the word I was looking for. Twin, twig, feet. And again, not really caring super much about the shape. It's okay that they're a little bendy. We're bendy on everything at the moment. Now I'm aware that this one has gone on for a bit and I don't want to overstay my welcome. So let me color these in. And I think that is a good place to leave the drawing. Now let me focus in on our character. Let's do his voice, and I should have been doing it while I was finishing, but I got a little carried away, my friends. So I think I will go ahead and start adding clothes. So for these carrots, let's do some shirts. Let's do some t-shirts. So, and then that way they'll no longer be naked. So if I've got this airy, small character, we're mostly dealing with round shapes, right? And is a bit of a anti-conformist, but doesn't seem to be in a aggressively outward nonconformist fashion, right? Isn't rubbing it in other people's face. He isn't being outwardly. He's minding his own damn business, is what he's doing, as these other carrots should be doing. He's minding his dang business. So with smaller characters, I think the assumption is you can often go high-pitched, and that can work very well. You can also define norms and go with a more deep voice, especially if it's a boss baby thing, if there's some humor value to be had in having them have a deep voice because they're such a diminutive character. For the purposes of this, I do kind of want to be contrarian, just in the sake that I tend to be a little bit, and it would be fun to try to come up with a voice that wouldn't necessarily be the first thing you'd think of when looking at this character. We'll do just a little t-shirt for these guys. Yeah. However, that being said, maybe it would be best just to stick with a smaller voice. Well, let's play around with it a little bit. So he likes music. So I don't like how this sleeve turned out. So why aren't the characters fond of music? Why is the music a big deal? Why are they like terrified of this guy? Well, I think because they're all trying to not gain attention from maybe unwanted attention. Maybe by playing the music, they're broadcasting themselves to animals that might like to eat them. So maybe I'm thinking a little too deeply about this, but we have carrots with clothes on that are freaking out at a character wearing headphones. I think that's another reason why I want clothes, is because we have shoes and headphones, but they're otherwise nude, which, hey, if that's what you're going for with your character, great. If not, I totally get that too. So with that being said, how am I going to come up with the voice for this character? He's got a little bit of a well, he doesn't care. So I think if he minds his own business, then he has a pretty friendly tone, and he might be a little airy, but he doesn't care. He doesn't try to put on a really cool voice. He doesn't try to be cool. He just wants to do his thing. What's my favorite kind of music? That's a great question. Whatever I want to listen to that day. So, let's see. I really like music that makes me think, or maybe, maybe it's not music. No, it's music. He's whistling. So what kind of music would a carrot listen to that is so inappropriate? Maybe it is or maybe they're all freaking out because he's a nudist. I don't know. We won't go that route. Anyway, we'll make his clothing much more tight fittings because he's smaller, so it'll be a little bit more clear about what he's wearing. And we'll make it follow the line. Anytime that you can make the design of the character follow the line work, you're doing something right. In that you're making it easier on yourself to draw that character again in different poses, and you're helping your audience because you're essentially drawing a language of readability for them. So for this guy, he is listening to is he a rocker? Maybe we lean into that rock and roll sort of thing. Like, hey man, yeah, I'm listening to my tunes. That's not how rockers sound. I kind of still like the baby carrot thing. So, you know, he's friendly. He's got his own thing going on, and if you want to be part of it, that's great. And if you don't, well, that's fine too. But I'm gonna go about my day, and I'm not gonna care about what anybody else has to say. So you can take that to the bank. And what would I say if I was this character? Well, I think maybe if you don't like it, you can step off. I'm rooted, man. And if he's caught in a dilemma, so, you know, I used to care a lot about what other people thought about me, and now I don't give a toss. You gotta find your own way. Eventually, everybody finds their own place to put down roots. So when you're doing voiceover, you would come up with maybe 3 to 5 voice over lines for this character to say. So obviously, you would want to showcase different emotions. So hopefully each line is a little bit different. I think those would be the kind of things he would say. Yeah, man. And maybe he has a moment of doubt too. So we've got some more confident lines, and then maybe he has a small moment of doubt. You know, sometimes when I'm all by myself, it really does hit me that I'm just very small. But then I remember we're all really small in the grand garden of things. And it's okay. It's okay to be small. Small doesn't mean insignificant. And I think that that's where we're going to leave it for today. So this was a welcome treat. This one is a little bit longer than the last one. We did quite a bit more drawing. So if you enjoyed, thank you so much for getting through to the end of the video. Throw a like and hit subscribe if you'd like more. And like I said, if you have any other suggestions on what to do differently or other things you'd like to see, sound off in the comments. I'm Jeffrey, this is Sound Sketchy, and I'll see you next time.